You feel the hot breath on the back of your neck. You are a competent professional. You have spent years mastering your craft. You know how to execute the mission, how to close the deal, and how to build the architecture. You were hired for your expertise, but you are not allowed to use it. Instead, you are trapped in a psychological prison built by a single, terrified individual. They watch your every keystroke. They demand to be CC'd on every mundane email. They rewrite your perfectly drafted documents to change happy to glad, simply to prove they have the power to do so. They demand daily status updates on projects that take months to complete. You are dealing with a micromanager. The amateur's reaction to the micromanager is resistance. The amateur feels insulted. The amateur argues. The amateur tries to explain their logic, tries to defend their autonomy, and tries to carve out a small piece of territory to call their own. The amateur hides information to avoid scrutiny. This is a fatal miscalculation. When you resist a micromanager, you validate their deepest, darkest fear, the fear that they are losing control. When you hide information, you trigger their paranoia. Their grip does not loosen, it tightens. They become a boa constrictor, wrapping around your neck until you cannot breathe, until your morale is completely shattered and you resign in defeat. The Warlord does not resist the boa constrictor. The Warlord knows that if you push against a knot, the knot tightens. But if you push into the knot, if you feed it slack, the knot dissolves. Sun Tzu said, "Therefore the skillful commander takes up a position in which he cannot be defeated and misses no opportunity to master his enemy. He wins his battles by making no mistakes." Today we are going to teach you how to destroy a micromanager without ever raising your voice, without ever breaking a rule, and without ever giving HR a single reason to discipline you. We are going to teach you the dark corporate art of overcompliance. We will show you how to weaponize obedience. We will teach you how to take the micromanager's desire for control and feed it to them in such massive, suffocating, unmanageable quantities that their cognitive bandwidth completely collapses. You are going to learn how to bury your enemy under an avalanche of their own demands. Welcome to the Art of Conquest. Part 1, The Anatomy of the Parasite, Diagnosing the Micromanager. To kill the enemy, you must first understand the disease that infects their mind. The amateur believes that the micromanager is an evil genius. The amateur believes the boss micromanages because they are a perfectionist or because they are vastly superior in intellect. This is an illusion. Micromanagement is not a symptom of perfectionism. It is a symptom of extreme, debilitating anxiety. The micromanager is an imposter. They have been promoted to a level of incompetence. They do not know how to lead, they do not know how to inspire, and they are terrified that the executives above them will discover their uselessness. Because they cannot control the macro strategy, which is complex and terrifying, they obsessively control the micro tactics. They cannot build the castle, so they stand over your shoulder and scream at you about how you are holding the hammer. They use your work as a shield for their own anxiety. By changing your font from Arial to Times New Roman, they convince themselves they have added value and manage the project. The micromanager operates on a strict psychological equation: control equals safety. If you fight them for control, you are threatening their safety. They will destroy you to protect themselves. Therefore, you must never fight them for control. You must hand them absolute, total, unadulterated control. You must make them so safe that they choke on it. Part 2, the physics of the trap, the cognitive load. The human brain is a finite processor. It can only handle a specific number of decisions per day before it experiences decision fatigue. When a CEO makes million-dollar decisions, they preserve their cognitive load by delegating everything else. They do not pick out their own clothes, they do not schedule their own flights, and they do not micromanage their VP's emails. They protect their bandwidth. The micromanager is trying to steal your bandwidth. They want you to do the heavy lifting of the actual work, but they want to step in at the final second, make a tiny tweak, and claim the glory. The overcompliance trap reverses this flow of energy. You execute a strategy of malicious obedience. If they want to be the brain of the operation, you must immediately cease to be a brain. You become a mindless, robotic limb. A limb cannot make decisions. A limb can only move when the brain sends a neurological signal. You transfer 100% of the cognitive load back onto their shoulders. You stop making independent judgments. You stop solving minor problems. You stop using your initiative. Every single friction point, every single ambiguity, every single microscopic decision is formally packaged and placed directly onto their desk for approval. You are going to give them exactly what they asked for. Absolute authority over every detail. Part 3, the protocols of suffocation. To execute this execution, you must follow the 3 protocols of overcompliance. You must become a machine of flawless, infuriating bureaucracy. Protocol 1, the Approval Avalanche. The micromanager wants to be kept in the loop. You will put them in a loop so tight it strangles them. You will no longer send them the final draft. You will send them the outline. Then you will send them the rough draft. Then you will send them the revised draft. If you are writing an email to a client, you do not send it. You draft it, send it to the micromanager and say, I have drafted the response to the client. Before I send it, I want to ensure the tone aligns perfectly with your strategic vision for this account. Please review and approve. You do this for everything. You CC them on every internal communication. You BCC them on every vendor update. When they ask why you are sending them so much data, you execute the void. You look at them with innocent, wide eyes and say, you mentioned last week that you needed greater visibility into the pipeline. I am simply ensuring you have total transparency so we avoid any misalignment. You use their own corporate buzzwords as the shovel to bury them. Protocol 2, the literal execution, the oddest frame. When a micromanager gives you an instruction, it is often flawed because they are focused on the micro and missing the macro. The amateur sees the flaw, fixes it quietly, and delivers a successful project. The amateur saves the boss from their own stupidity. The warlord does not save the boss. The warlord lets the boss walk off the cliff. When they give you a flawed instruction, you execute it with literal, robotic precision. If they tell you to use a specific software tool that you know will crash the system, you do not argue. You send an email. Just to confirm our meeting, I will deploy the specific software tool you mandated by 3 p.m. today. Then you deploy it. The system crashes. When the fallout happens, you do not apologize. You produce the email. I executed the exact parameters you provided. I assumed you had a strategic reason for overriding standard protocol. You prioritize strategic dominance over risk mitigation. You do not mitigate the risk of the project failing. You ensure the failure is entirely owned by their mandate. You make it mathematically impossible for them to blame you. Protocol 3, the weaponized update. Micromanagers love status meetings. They love pulling you away from your actual work to ask you what you are working on. You must weaponize the update. You do not wait for them to ask. You preemptively strike. You send them a daily end-of-day email. It should be obscenely detailed. It should be 3 pages long. Detail every phone call. Detail the exact percentage of completion of every task. At 10:14 a.m., I contacted the vendor. The vendor took 12 minutes to reply. We are currently blocked on item 4B due to a lack of approval on the shade of blue in the logo. Please advise on the exact hex code you prefer so I can unblock this task. You are creating a paper trail of your own perfection and simultaneously demonstrating that the only reason progress is slow is because they have not provided enough micro approvals. Part 4, the corporate kill box simulations. Let us step onto the battlefield and run the simulations. You must see how the trap snaps shut in real time. Simulation 1, the design dictator. You are a lawyer drafting a massive, complex appellate brief or a marketing director building a campaign. Your boss is a micromanager who contributes nothing to the legal arguments or the market strategy, but obsessively changes your formatting, your headings, and your word choices to feel important. The amateur gets frustrated, argues about the font, and eventually gives up, feeling demoralized. The warlord executes overcompliance. You draft the brief. Before you even finalize the core arguments, you stop. You walk into their office. The warlord: I am preparing the structure for the appellate brief. Before I invest 40 hours into the research, I need your executive sign-off on the formatting matrix. Do you prefer Times New Roman size 12 or Century Schoolbook size 11? Should the primary headers be bolded and underlined or simply bolded? Furthermore, what is your stance on Oxford commas for this specific judge? The micromanager is thrilled. They get to make a decision. Times New Roman, bold and underline, yes to Oxford commas. The warlord returns to their desk. You write the first 3 paragraphs. You stop. You email the 3 paragraphs to the boss. I have applied your formatting matrix to the introductory section. Please review the sentence structure in paragraph 2. Is it too aggressive or does it hit the right tone? I am pausing further drafting until I receive your green light. Analyze the strike. You have completely halted production. You are holding the project hostage, but you are doing it disguised as extreme deference to their authority. The boss is now forced to stop whatever they are doing, read your 3 paragraphs, and make a decision. You do this 5 times a day. By day 3, the boss is drowning in your drafts. Their own work is piling up. Their anxiety shifts from, I need to control this, to, I cannot keep up with this. They will snap. They will say, stop sending me every paragraph. Just write the brief and give me the final version. You have won. You forced them to voluntarily surrender their control because the cost of maintaining it became too high. Simulation 2, the paranoid tracker. Your boss demands to know where you are and what you are doing at every minute of the day. They send you Slack messages at 8:05 a.m. asking why you aren't online yet. They treat you like a truant child. The amateur tries to sneak around. The amateur sets their Slack status to active while they go make coffee. The amateur lives in a state of perpetual anxiety, terrified of being caught. The warlord executes the blizzard of visibility. You do not hide. You become a beacon of blinding light. You send an email at 8 a.m. sharp. Good morning, I am logging on. My agenda for the next 90 minutes is deep focus work on the Q3 metrics. I will be entirely offline and unreachable until 9:30 a.m. to ensure 0 errors in the data calculation. I will update you at 9:31 a.m. At 9:31 a.m., the deep focus session is complete. The metrics are 40% aggregated. I am now taking a mandatory 15-minute ergonomic screen break as per corporate wellness guidelines. I will be back at my terminal at 9:46 a.m. When they ask you to perform a task, you reply, I am ready to execute. However, I am currently working on the Q3 metrics you prioritized yesterday. If I pivot to this new task, the Q3 metrics will be delayed by precisely 4 hours. Which task would you like me to formally deprioritize? Analyze the strike. You are not rebelling. You are aggressively complying. By announcing your every move, you strip them of their ability to catch you. You take away the dopamine hit they get from micromanaging. Furthermore, by forcing them to explicitly choose which tasks get delayed, you make them take ownership of the bottlenecks. If the Q3 metrics are late, it is not because you are lazy. It is because they ordered you to deprioritize them. You have a written record of their order. The paranoid tracker will quickly realize that tracking you is a full-time job that provides no satisfaction and carries massive liability. They will back off. Part 5. The shield of plausible deniability, the paper trail. The over-compliance trap only works if your execution is flawless. If you ask for permission and they give it and then you do a sloppy job, you are dead. They will blame your incompetence, not their micromanagement. You must be a lethal operator. Your work must be unimpeachable. The trap relies on the fact that when the project fails or stalls, the only variable to blame is their bottlenecking of the approvals. You must build a fortress of plausible deniability. This is achieved through the iron law of the paper trail. A micromanager loves to give verbal orders. They love to drop by your desk, whisper a change to the strategy, and walk away. Why? Because verbal orders leave no fingerprints. If the change destroys the project, they will deny they ever said it. They will throw you under the bus to save their own skin. You must never accept a verbal order from a micromanager. You cannot refuse the order, but you must solidify it in amber. When they leave your desk, you immediately sit down and type the, as per our conversation, email. Hi boss, just summarizing our brief sync at my desk. As per your verbal instructions, I am halting work on the beta test and reallocating my time entirely to the slide deck formatting. I will proceed with this new directive immediately unless I hear otherwise from you. You press send. You have just created a legally and corporately binding document. You have pinned the butterfly to the corkboard. If the executives ask why the beta test failed, the boss cannot say he was distracted. You simply forward the email to the executives. I was following the explicit, documented pivot order from my direct supervisor. You prioritize your own strategic dominance. You do not care if the slide deck is useless. You do not care if the beta test was more important. The amateur cares about the company. The warlord cares about the empire of one. You protect your flank. Let their vanity burn the company's money. Part 6. The breaking point, the transfer of power. How does the war end? It ends when the micromanager's cognitive load reaches critical mass. They are imposter syndrome sufferers who are desperately trying to look competent. By forcing them to make hundreds of micro-decisions, you expose their incompetence to themselves. They will sit at their desk, staring at 20 emails from you asking for approval on font colors, timeline adjustments, and minor wording changes. They will realize that they do not know the answers. They will realize that making these decisions is exhausting, terrifying work. They will experience the ego collapse. They will call you into their office. They will look exhausted. They will say the magic words, "Listen, you don't need to run every little thing by me. Just use your best judgment. Just handle it." This is the moment of surrender. This is the moment the treaty is signed. But the warlord does not smile. The warlord does not gloat. If you smile, you reveal that it was a game. The warlord maintains the mask of the obedient servant. The warlord nods slowly, looking slightly concerned. Understood. I just wanted to ensure absolute alignment with your standards. But if you prefer I take point on the granular execution, I will assume full autonomy over the daily operations and only loop you in for the macro deliverables. You have just dictated the new terms of the relationship. You have verbally established full autonomy. You have boxed them out of the micro. They will nod. They will be relieved that you are taking the burden away from them. You walked into the room a prisoner. You walk out of the room the shadow CEO of your own department. Part 7. Internal alchemy, killing your own ego. Why is this strategy so difficult for intelligent people to execute? Because intelligent people have massive egos. When you are smart and you know how to do a job perfectly, it is physically agonizing to watch an idiot ruin it. When the micromanager tells you to do something stupid, your ego screams. Tell them they are wrong. Show them how smart you are. Save the project. You must kill this urge. You must strangle your ego. The amateur wants to be right. The warlord wants to be free. To win this war, you must be willing to watch a project burn to the ground, as long as the micromanager's fingerprints are all over the matchbook. You must accept that you will not get the credit for the initial ideas, because the micromanager will steal them. You must let them take the credit. Let them wear the fake crown. Sun Tzu said, "Pretend to be inferior and encourage his arrogance." When you feed their arrogance, they become lazy. When they become lazy, they rely on you more. Eventually, they become entirely dependent on your execution to maintain their illusion of competence. When a parasite becomes completely dependent on the host controls the parasite. You become the indispensable ghost in the machine. You hold the real power while they hold the empty title. And when the time is right, when you have built your war chest and forged your alliances with the executives above them, you can simply stop covering for them. You can step aside and watch the empty suit collapse under its own weight. Part 8. Defense against the dark arts. When you are the boss. You are studying the art of conquest. You are building an empire. Eventually, you will be the one in charge. You will have subordinates. You will have employees. What happens when an employee tries to use the overcompliance trap on you? What happens when a subordinate starts flooding your inbox with minor requests for approval, playing the idiot to avoid doing the heavy lifting? This is called weaponized incompetence. It is the cousin of malicious obedience. They are trying to transfer their cognitive load onto you. They want you to do their job for them. If you act like the amateur boss, you will get frustrated, you will sigh, and you will say, "Fine, I'll just do it myself." If you do this, the employee wins. They have successfully trained you to do their work while they collect a paycheck. The Warlord manager recognizes the trap instantly. When the employee brings you a micro problem and asks for your approval, you execute the reverse burden drop. You do not answer the question. You do not solve the problem. You look at them coldly and say, "You were hired for your expertise in this specific domain. I do not make granular decisions regarding font colors or baseline vendor outreach. I expect you to analyze the variables, make a definitive choice, and execute it. If you are unable to operate with autonomy, we need to have a structural conversation about your fit for this role. Do not bring this back to my desk until it is a finished deliverable." You take the heavy lead box of accountability and you throw it violently back at their chest. You establish the boundary of the void. You refuse to accept their monkeys. You teach them that attempting to manage up will result in immediate, terrifying consequences for their job security. They will retreat. They will either start doing their job or they will quit. Both outcomes benefit your empire. Conclusion: the freedom of the machine. The world is filled with insecure tyrants. They sit in middle management, in government offices, and in toxic relationships, desperate to control the people around them to quiet the screaming voices of their own inadequacy. If you fight them, you become entangled with them. You become covered in their mud. You waste your precious, finite energy trying to reason with an irrational animal. Stop fighting the animal. Become the machine. When the micromanager demands compliance, give them compliance. Give them so much compliance that it drowns them. Become perfectly literal. Become a mirror of their own absurd mandates. Document their idiocy with the cold, unfeeling precision of a court stenographer. Let them make every decision until the weight of the decisions crushes their spine. You are not submitting, you are maneuvering. You are trading your short-term ego for long-term strategic dominance. You are stepping back into the shadows, handing them the steering wheel, and quietly unbuckling their seatbelt just before the cliff. This is the way of the art of conquest. On this channel, we cover a range of topics like the one in this video. If you enjoy this type of content, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, we may never see each other again. See you again soon.